Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the stream. Welcome. All right, guys. Well, today we are going to be doing another one-on-one lesson with a sensei. And today I'm with Frank, aka Gothmog, who's been watching for a while, right? I feel like you've been around.
Yeah, it's been a while. I cannot remember when it exactly became like part of my daily Twitch routine, but it's been a few months probably.
Cool. So real quick, could you maybe give folks an intro to yourself, maybe how long you've been playing, what you've been doing lately as far as your chess goes. Also, what does your username mean, Gothmog?
So Gothmog is a Lord of the Rings or like Tolkien character. I think there's actually two characters by that name. They're both not part of like the main Lord of the Rings Hobbit stuff, but you'd have to read some of the other like advanced Tolkien books to meet them.
Nice. Okay, I had no idea. Cool.
So chess wise, I'm Frank. I live in the Boston area. I'm 37 years old and have a wife and a 40-year-old kid. Chess wise, I've been playing on and off basically since I was a elementary school student. Played for a few years, then stopped. Got back into it in high school and started out there really getting serious about it, and moved from like 1300 rating to about 1700, and then stopped at some point in college when I went to grad school. Moved from Germany to the US, and then I had a few years break, and then got into it again later on, like around 29, 30, and most recently I've gotten up to like about 2000 rating, and usually my routine is around doing some puzzles, playing Blitz online, reading a few books. So right now I'm working through Shankland's Small Steps, Big Improvement, the
pawn book.
The pawn book, the first one of it, right. About like 3/4 through, and I'm enjoying that a lot.
Cool. Now, when you say 2000, is that online rating, USCF rating, or?
No, 2000, 2000. I'm 2075 USCF, or it was a few years ago before when I stopped playing tournament chess over the board because we had a kid, and then now over the past year I've just been getting back into online chess.
Okay, very cool. Well, thanks for being here. Gothmog redeemed the 100k Dojo Gold lesson, which we put there for you guys to kind of like motivate you and give you something to work towards. It's actually like good for your chess. Like you get to hang out with a coach for a little while and get some one-on-one training. Basically I feel like I've seen you play on stream a number of times at this point. You're usually one of the stronger players in chat from what I remember, like when we're doing any kind of like puzzle solving or anything. So I feel like you're one of our sharper members. But I took a look at some of the games you sent me. Some I think they were classical online games, right?
Right. That was the Charlotte Chess Center Online Open. The time was 70 minutes with 10-second increments.
Gotcha. So that was basically like as close to, I mean, over the board plays you're gonna get, just like a classical game online. And so I can't say I have like a total sense of like where your chess is at and like give you a full diagnosis, but I've prepared some exercises that I think will be useful for you. I'm just going to put some positions on the board, ask you to calculate for 10 minutes and decide on a move, or let's say a move and a couple moves planned from there. And then we'll just talk about it after you're done.
Sounds good.
Okay, great. In that case, let me put the first one on the board. I'm going to try really hard not to make arrows on it or anything. We're just going to be discussing it here in Twitch, and like I mentioned, you can take up to 10 minutes if you decide on a move beforehand. You can certainly let me know. Okay. So this is the first position. This is white to play. And yeah, go ahead and leave Zoom audio whenever you're ready.
Okay, and you don't want to tell me if it's like I should be looking for some like technical solution or just sort of like a general move.
Yeah, I just want to see what
Okay.
you would
All
play
right,
here. Yeah.
I'll take that.
Okay, let me get the timer set here. Okay, guys, in the meantime, we can definitely discuss it here on stream. And yeah, the topic should be in the stream title. So this is basically going to be like a middle game lesson. I'm going to be giving, I mean, this is really more of an opening position, but kind of leading to the middle game. So I included it, but we're going to be looking at some interesting middle games. Ones that are actually, let's say, thematic to Frank's repertoire. He is a Catalan player, and we'll see a Grunfeld player. And yeah, these positions will just kind of maybe give us a sense of where his thought process is at in these kinds of like typical positions. And yeah, it'll be good to kind of see what his biases are and how he approaches these positions and this kind of thing. I don't know exactly what we'll learn, but I think these are some interesting positions, and whatever Gothmog suggests will kind of clue us into his understanding of these positions. Okay, so getting some suggestions for like knight e5. Yeah, definitely a very thematic move to kind of like open up the knight on the diagonal. I won't be drawing any arrows while we're doing this because he and I are sharing a board, and so that's just going to distract him. So for those of you in chat and those of you in YouTube actually watching this later, you guys can of course feel free to follow along and take the lesson along with Frank. I'll try to give you guys feedback as I can. But you can absolutely try to take this like a serious lesson and pretend as if I'm giving you the positions straight on. Yeah, if you're later on YouTube, you're really dedicated, pause the video, set up a board, set up a timer, you know, put yourself through the exact same exercise. It's, I mean, honestly, the same experience. It can be very helpful. Yeah. I love all the redeems. It gives us good content. we get to like reward someone who watches the channel, and we get to like create content for everyone else. So 95, let's talk about it. There's a couple things black can do there. One of them is to just take on e5 and sacrifice the exchange on a8. The other is black can also block the diagonal with knight d5. So yeah, this is of course, both of these things are worth thinking about. There was an earlier one too, Chess Latte. Actually, people have already started redeeming their second lessons. We're going to be starting round 2 pretty soon for some folks. So that'll be cool. There is, I think, a strongest move in mind here for white. I think there is one clear move that's kind of best above all. I wouldn't call it a tactic though. Nice. Okay, so far the only candidate moves we've seen are knight e5, and now from Madarkadonk, a4, which they say looks tempting to open up the a file. And I would say, yeah, a4 is absolutely a candidate move here for white in this kind of Catalan type position where we've sacrificed the pawn, but we're just trying to make things work on the diagonal. Hey, thanks Breams with the bits. Oh yeah, Cheesy suggested knight c3 first, which is certainly a move here as well. And then black can play, I think, any number of things. Bishop b4, bishop d6, bishop e7. I think lots of moves there. e4 is a move in Catalan type positions. You don't have to be a Catalan player to come up with moves here. E4 can be a thing to try and push in the center. We can start with A3, but I would say if we want to play knight C3, then generally we're not super worried about B4 here, because the knight will just go to A4. Actually, one thing I can do is I can hopefully drag the pieces without disturbing Frank. So if knight C3, black pushes B4, then a lot of times we can go knight A4, knight takes D4 there maybe is annoying, I'm not sure. But the point is the pawn on C4 will then be kind of difficult to protect. Maybe white even goes back knight B1, knight D2, and then wins the pawn with knight C4. So it's like sometimes white actually kind of wants to provoke this one.
Okay.
Oh, cool. Ready to discuss?
Yeah, I don't feel like I necessarily cracked it and can just like walk through like a clear sequence of best moves, but I at least have some thoughts.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, what are you thinking here?
So, and the first thing that comes to mind is trying to do something with the long diagonal and trying to cash in on that potential like discovered attack on the rook on A8. So I was pretty much spending most of my time thinking about implications of knight E5.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like knight D5 is basically forced to try to block the diagonal. And so there was like a variation that I basically tried to calculate. So basically, knight D5, I think you need to go knight takes C6, because I want to go E4 and D4 is going to hang. So I exchange on C6 first, bishop takes, E4, knight goes somewhere, E7, and then D5, just trying to basically blow things open while the black king is still in the center, even though my queen side is still not really playing. But if then there's a bunch of exchanges happening on D5, so pawn takes, bishop takes, then I probably have something like rook D1. So it just feels like at that point, I haven't really invested anything yet, but I still have just like a lot of pressure, and black isn't really developed, and it's gonna be hard to untangle. I didn't feel super confident about this whole thing, so I also looked at some other general improvement moves.
Mm-hmm.
Like A4 is something I considered, just trying to undermine there a little bit, or just rook D1 first, or knight D2, knight BD2, maybe with the idea of just bringing in some pieces before doing something. But then again, like if anything gets delayed, then black I think goes just kind of bishop E7 and castles, and then I still have the pressure on the diagonal, but at least I think the immediate opportunity is at least gone.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, that was really interesting. So let's kind of go into this a bit. So this is definitely more of like this is kind of a question almost of like your theoretical knowledge in the Catalan. I noticed you're a Catalan player, right? At least one of your games. Is that your main repertoire?
Yeah, so I was actually an E4 player all my life until like last fall. I started switching to D4 because I had a little bit of a gap in my chess, and felt like it's an opportunity to try something new. And I played like online Blitz and Rapid, like started playing D4 openings without actually studying any theory at first.
Mm-hmm.
And I managed to pretty much hold my Blitz rating despite not knowing any theory. So I felt that that's a good sign. And then I started looking at some of the theory. It's still fairly new.
Okay, cool. Well, that's great. Yeah, I wasn't sure if you would know this one because you mentioned like, okay, you do a little bit of chessable. I thought this could be a position where you already just like know the move and we would just move on. But it's good that you don't know it because it means you'll learn a really nice idea here, and hopefully everyone else will in chat as well. To talk about your first kind of move, knight E5. This is very typical for the Catalan to try and make something on this diagonal. This is, I think, already a case where black can just go ahead and offer the exchange on a8. I don't know if you had a lot of thoughts on this one, because maybe you wanted to just recapture on e5, or...
Yeah, no, I wanted to take the exchange and then take on e5.
Yeah, so if we look at some position like this one, and then black goes either knight d5 or maybe knight e4, yeah, how would you evaluate this one?
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of those situations where the exchange sacrifice looks like reasonable because of the weakness of the light squares around my king now. And if I can go something like f3, e4, just to sort of block, and then get my pieces out.
Yeah, well, it's certainly playable. It's I wouldn't say white is necessarily worse, but yeah, I think the compensation, like with the light squared bishop, black already has, like, let's say one pawn for the exchange plus some like strategic advantages, like there's knight c5, knight d3 maybe coming. I don't know, as a former Catalan player, this is something I would honestly prefer to avoid when you don't have this, like, this bishop on g2, because it can really be, yeah, just very unsafe for the king in the long run. But it is playable. I don't want to say it's not playable. I would just say that black probably has, like, full compensation here. I think if they go knight d5, then let's take a look actually the line you mentioned. So take, and then e4, knight e7, and d5. I think the instinct here is good because we are castled, and so if we can, let's say, make something happen with the lead in development, yeah, you're down 2 pawns, but, like, they're doubled. So yeah, you're not down that much material here as white, and you do have a nice initiative. It's not clear how black is gonna, like, complete development here, so it's like, yeah, I'm totally with your evaluation here. I think you have good play. So I think you kind of, like, I think at least what you calculated, I think, was pretty close. That said, there are other moves here. You know, you can always consider, like, rook d1, knight c3, kind of like strengthening d5 as well. Just worth thinking about too. But you only had 10 minutes. So yeah. Okay. So let's actually go, so back to this position. The move here, a4, like you mentioned, is also thematic, but the move that I think really gives white a really enjoyable position to play. I don't know actually if anyone, no, it was said in the chat, it was mentioned. b3. So this is kind of like, well, basically you're now just committing to the pawn sack. Because of course we gave up this pawn on c4 earlier, and now you're just inviting black to go ahead and just keep a full extra pawn, but at the expense of, like, now you get the a file and you get the c file, and basically just get nice and very long-term pressure here. That's okay. If you didn't consider b3, guys, that's totally fine. I remember when I was a Catalan player, like, I saw this move for the first time. This actually comes from a game between a couple strong GMs, Evgeny Tomaszewski, who played this against Australian Grandmaster in the World Cup 10 years ago, 2011. And I don't think he was the first one, actually. I feel like I remember, like, Ivanchuk using a similar sacrifice as well. But basically this has become a very thematic idea in the Catalan, where you just give the pawn, but you open up the a file and the c file again, and yeah, you just play for this kind of, like, long-term pressure. And yeah, it's a nice one to know because you can use it in similar situations when black is already kind of, like, extended with b5. You play b3, you know, threatening to take on c4, not much they can do. They kind of have to go into this structure. Let me just show you a couple moves how this game played out, so we can just see what happened here. Black developed, and this is basically what we'd say like kind of long-term like positional compensation, where white is not really going to be winning the pawn back, but is just trying to like improve the position, control the center, dominate like some key squares, not let black break free with c5 or e5. And so here white played knight e5, rook to b8, knight d2, rook b6, knight df3, just calmly improving everything. Black goes bishop c8, knight e1 to open up the diagonal, knight d7 was played, and then I really like white's next move. Knight goes back to d3, so avoiding the trade of the knight on d7, which is kind of in black's way, but offering the trade of this knight on b4, which is kind of holding black's position together by like defending the a6 pawn and the c6 square as well. So if these knights get traded, then one day white can think about using the c6 square. So black took this one, knight takes d3, bishop d6, now e4, white is just gaining space and essentially just playing the position like he's like not down the pawn, right? It's like he's not looking for any kind of tactics or win it back. I mean, of course he's looking for tactics, but he's not trying to like set up little tricks to win back the pawn. He's just improving the position and letting his pieces just take good squares. And of course, eventually when white does win the pawn back, it's going to be like with a decisive positional advantage. So knight c5, bishop c8. Okay, game continued. He played like rook c2 and then planned on doubling. f4 was also already like really strong here and just taking more space with e5 and d5. And yeah, basically position was very nice for white. And yeah, he ended up winning later on. Okay, questions on this one?
Yeah, really interesting. I've seen this b3 idea in some lines, but I didn't cross my mind at all in this particular case. And I think it would take probably some prep for me to be going for this in like an actual game, because like you're just playing down a pawn for like very long time, and you better know what you're doing.
Yeah, I think it's it definitely takes some confidence to kind of play this over the board, because you're basically just saying like, yeah, I'm just not going to win the pawn back, but I believe in the position. So definitely a good one to maybe use for like a training game or something to get your feet wet playing these kinds of positions. Because for Catalan players, I think they're very fun. Honestly, you can also try them from black's point of view and see how you like it. Okay, with that, let's go to the next one here. Okay, this next one is black to play. And when you're ready, you can leave the audio, and I'll see you in about 10 minutes or so.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out how to flip the board.
Oh, yeah, settings icon, like top right side of the board.
Okay. That's Stockfish settings.
Oh, yeah, left of that.
Now my UI look maybe, oh, that one, okay. Yep, okay, got it. No, still not flipping.
Oh, sorry. If you hover over the settings, there's like the third
that
option.
one. Okay, found it. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
No worries. All right. So I'll see you soon.
Sounds good.
Thank you. So yeah, now it's black to play. Yeah, exactly, JB, exactly. So Cheesy, the point of the last one is that with b3, white is able to develop their pieces to the most effective squares. So like the dark square bishop, for example, instead of d2, does a much better job on b2, where it restricts black's play on the diagonal, or restricts both of the pawn breaks, e5 and c5. White's rook does much better on c1 after the pawn break versus when black's pawn is on c4. So the point of the pawn break in exactly that position is that it kind of facilitates white to develop in the best possible way. I didn't exactly explain that fully, but yeah. And yeah, it's very likely in Albrecht's book that this has been a part of Catalan theory for quite some time. So I'm sure he would be a fan of these kinds of breaks. Rook d1 instead first might be okay as well. I mean, it's more of like a theoretical question. I'm sure other moves are playable in that position, but the main thing to, I think, demonstrate was just that white is totally willing to give this pawn. Am I familiar with the Greek player Papanou? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm sure I've seen some of his games. The name is extremely familiar. Yeah. Okay, guys, so black to play, and as you might have recognized, this is kind of a Grunfeld. White's last move was this move d takes c5, capturing black's pawn on c5. So currently we are down a pawn in the initial position. And now it's up to black to decide what to do here. Can I run through the moves from the beginning? No, I can't actually, just because Frank is using the same board. So if I do anything to the board, that will kind of affect his concentration. But I can tell you guys the game if you want to look it up yourselves. The game is Kiryakov versus Kudrin, 1999. But of course, please don't give away, the solution if if you look up the game. Okay, so, well, black is, right, so white just captured on c5, so yeah, if we take on e2 here, queen takes e2, and bc5, we can regain the pawn. But, well, let's just say we definitely want to think about it a little bit deeper than that. But that is one idea, of course. Definitely a big option. I'm not really like trying to like trick you guys. There definitely is, I think, a clear way for black to play this position, and so this is, again, another assessment how Gothmog kind of approaches these positions. So there's really no point in like trying to like metagame it. Like, I don't think, in general, you'll do better if you try to figure it out on your own. Just try to think about the position and what you would do.
Okay, I'm back.
All right, cool. Let me pause the timer. We were just getting started thinking about it, but what do you got?
So I mean, this felt like an idea that I have seen before, and especially since it just sort of put me onto this topic of like this positional pawn sacrifice in the previous position. The idea in sort of like a Grunfeld position to play with the pawn on b6 versus the two isolated A and C pawns, something that I've seen before. So it's basically looking at that pretty much, because I don't really want to capture back on c5 with the pawn, right? Like something like bishop takes e2, queen takes, and then b takes c. That like just doesn't look attractive at all, and so where I spend my time, thinking through or calculating a little bit was just to make sure I'm not really going like down two full pawns, because after something like so queen c7 maybe, to start activating some pieces, and if for example bishop takes a6, knight takes, and then cb, ab, and then either queen takes or rook takes. Just wanted to make sure that I'm at least immediately winning back one of the two pawns, and then continue just with the sort of more active pieces, maybe to have that compensation.
Right. So yeah, let's say something like rook takes b6 here. Are you taking on c3 or?
It's tempting to just like try to win at least one pawn back right away, but probably knight c5 is sort of what I would look at first here.
Yeah, I think at this point, right, black has options for sure. So yeah, knight c5 makes sense. Queen c3 feels like you're gonna be very likely to just win the second pawn back as well in the end game. So it feels like black should be very, very close to equal there. Bishop c3 may be, I don't know, maybe a little bit tricky here. That white has like bishop a3 ideas, rook c1. Like, yeah, we have to be a little bit careful. But okay, yeah, in general, your assessment is, of course, yeah, totally correct. This is kind of like typical idea in the Grunfeld. As you probably noticed, I'm like just kind of focusing on positions that are related to your repertoire.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think so. Queen c7 here is fine. In the game, white decided to take on e2 first and then go queen c7, which is essentially very similar, because still black's knight wants to kind of go on this trajectory and reach like this c5 square. Maybe this one gives white fewer options just because now white doesn't have the chance to take on b6 yet. And so, yeah, you're kind of getting the structure you wanted to play, where we have these two open files, actually very similar to the Catalan position, kind of like this b3, b6 idea. Just getting two open files, tons of pressure, and yeah, one day you're very likely to just get the pawn back. Like white's extra pawn is too weak to really matter here.
I was briefly looking at exchanging on e2. What I didn't like was the idea of bishop e3 instead of taking on b6. Because it just, previously the queen is sort of misplaced a little bit on e3 because it prevents the bishop from coming out that way.
Oh, I see. I gotcha. That makes sense. I feel like this happened. Oh no, this didn't happen in the game, but I believe black would probably just play knight d7. In the game, they had takes, bishop e3, knight d7, and black was basically okay. So I imagine probably knight d7 would have been the response.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're threatening just to take back with the piece, where then you're just going to be clearly better. So yeah, I'm guessing white would just have to probably go into this one anyway. Yeah, okay, so you would feel comfortable playing this one?
Yeah, I think so.
Good. That's important. Okay, let's jump to our next position. Let's do this one. Okay, this is again black to play. Just reset here. Ready to go?
Yep, I'm ready.
Okay.
See you in a few minutes.
I'll see you soon. All right, timer has been started. So yeah, basically he nailed the last one. He was familiar with the idea. The only question was details, whether to take on e2 first or not. I think objectively they're very, very close. And yeah, on to the next one. Oh yeah, Cannibal Bishop, to answer your question, I think you got it already. Yeah, white can take on b6, black just goes ab and no problem. The point there, guys, for everyone who was maybe a little bit confused about the Grunfeld is just that, as Gothmog mentioned, if black just takes back this pawn on c5, you don't really get the open files. Your a file is closed, your c file is closed, so material is equal, but white then gets the open b file, open d file, and the white structure is not as weak. So it's like actually white has a little bit of pressure in that structure. Okay, this is another Grunfeld, as we can see. I think this is from the US Championship, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, this is the game Shulman versus Kamsky from the 2009 US Championship. This was one of the first US Championships in St. Louis that they've been doing now for, I think, over a decade. Yeah. Kamsky, of course, very, very good Grunfeld player. Definitely, yeah, a player for Grunfeld folks to study. All right, so we're looking at e6 and f5, queen a5, queen c7. Someone mentioned c4 and b5. Yeah, lots of moves here for black. And of course, a lot of times we're in a situation, you know, this is again kind of late opening, early middle game where you have lots of thematic ideas. And so of course it's very difficult to figure out which one to do. And I would say this is already like a critical decision. You know, let's say we're out of book here, we don't know what to play. When you have so many different like directions the game could go, f5, e6, c4, queen a5, queen c7, it's like, yeah, you really want to take your time and think about it here. I'm only giving Gothmog like 10 minutes. That's not a ton of time, but maybe a little bit of time just to see where his instincts lie. Does he want f5 here, e6? Maybe he'll go b6. Yeah. So queen a5 here, of course, seems to make sense as it goes after white's pawns. And then it will be a question whether white wants to defend them or just castle, which I think would also be quite possible. So Nizaki says they don't like e6 because of c4. So yeah, on e6, it does feel like white's response might be c4 there, just reinforcing the d pawn. White might also think about throwing in f4 to kick the bishop and then going c4, just taking mass space. And then the rook on b3 starts to make sense after we play c4, as it can kind of transfer along the third rank. Queen c7, bishop d7 feels natural. Cheesy says queen a5, queen d2 stops all threats. Yeah, defends the pawns, but if that's the idea, maybe queen c2, just not to block the bishop, and then white can castle next. I think queen c2 certainly works. Queen d2, I just feel like we're like black's queen on a5 is still kind of well placed, but the bishop on c1 feels a little stuck. But queen c2, I think is quite reasonable. It does maybe run into some bishop d7 stuff, so have to think about that a little bit as well. Lord Francesco says, I don't feel like the queen can take a2 seems like the queen's gonna get trapped. Yeah, I think in general, a lot of times black can take on a2, but white does get full compensation for it because it takes black a lot of moves to take this one pawn. Queen gets kicked around a bit. White gets a lot of time to build up their initiative and their space, and so white gets nice compensation. Okay, race to jam believes in c4 now. By the way, thanks for following ASAP Jab, and thanks for subscribing, Sahil. Much appreciated, guys. Welcome to Dojo. Hey, thanks for following. I'm not going to pronounce that. I just can't. I can't do it. That one's out of my range. Oh, RT. Oh, I can do that. Is that short for retweet? RT sounds good. Hey, thanks for the BetStore, Francesco. Actually, my coaching is currently exclusive to cochess.com. So that's the main place to find info about private lessons. So I don't do a ton of coaching, but I have my availability on there. Oh, John, there. I think it blocked out. It blocks out the links. But I believe John was trying to send a link to coachess.com. So Soren says as white, they would find queen c7 the most annoying because it's hard to castle because h2 is hanging, which definitely makes sense. But I don't know, maybe white just ignores it anyway. Thanks, Jason. Hey, Stayman USA with the sub. Thanks so much. JB, I had to go up and travel to a photographer. So he made me do them. But yeah, I'm sure they instructed.
Okay, I'm back.
All right. Oh, the timer's gonna go off. It's gonna be so loud. Sorry, everyone. Okay, what did you come up with here?
So I think this is pretty much a theoretical position where I think it's like a sideline where white went rook b3 instead of I guess a queen d2.
Mm-hmm.
I think I actually had this line in the Dojo Gauntlet against Lefang.
Oh, no way! Wow.
Yeah, and not with rook b3, but I believe I even had rook b3 in my file somewhere because one of my opponents in that Charlotte Open, I am Muradli, actually I think I played this once. So I had it in my in my review files, and I sort of believe that I think the engine move is actually e6 here. So I was sort of like also tied to that idea because it's also just a thematic thing here to go in and attack the center, and then white typically would probably go something along the lines of like f4, bishop c7, and yeah, I mean, lots of options I think there, but e6 is sort of I think the move that sort of has to be played. I looked at a couple of other options just to make sure that I'm not like missing something totally different. I mean, c4 is also something that I was considering, just to try to prevent the immediate like white playing c4, and if he captures back with the bishop, maybe there are some ideas to win some tempos. And then I kind of play against that backward c pawn. But I mean, especially with the rook on b3, which I think is a little bit unusual, that sort of like forces white to do something as opposed to maybe otherwise just leaving the pawn on c4 for a moment, maybe. But I just still feel like I have to play e6 like rather sooner rather than later, and so that was still I think the first thing that I would go for.
Okay, yeah, I think I think there's a few ways to play this position. E6 is definitely, from what I understand, a very reasonable move. So on f4, we wanted bishop c7, and let's say white plays something like c4 here. How would you
take on d4? Oh, on d5 once.
Let's say cd5, usually the critical one.
Yeah, and then I think I have to make something work on the with my queenside pawns. Otherwise, I'm just gonna get rolled. F5 is sort of a move in some of these positions, but in this particular case, I think white just can go e5, and everything is sort of protected and doesn't really look like something I would want to play against. So maybe a6 is what I'd be thinking about here. Try to go b5.
So that might be a little slow, because if white gets to play like e5 d6, that could be really bad with the pawns. I mean, I'm not a huge Grunfeld guy, but I've played these positions from white's point of view quite a bit, and the only move that would really scare me here is something like c4. Just like flinging the pawn, opening the diagonals, trying to get like bishop b6, like I can't castle, rook e8. Just playing in very, very dynamic manner. Again, I'm not sure objectively what would be best here, but okay, maybe actually just worth analyzing later, because these positions they can hinge, on like one tempo. Like either you're in time with the counterplay or you're not. But let's go back. So this is actually a game played from the US Championship over 10 years ago between Yuri Shulman and Gata Kamsky. And Kamsky actually did go with c4, which another type of like one of these like thematic ideas. And actually I want to just go through a few moves of this game. So bishop takes c4 was played. queen c7, and now white played queen to e2. Actually, I wanted to ask you, do you have a Grunfeld guru? Like, is there a Grunfeld player you particularly like?
So actually, like many years ago, 2015 or so, I took a few lessons with Avruk. And so it's sort of inspired me also to get serious about the Grunfeld.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, Avruk, of course, he's a legend. So you picked up his repertoire then, the Catalan and the Grunfeld.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Nice. Yeah, I always recommend having like a champion or someone to study. There are lots of huge players out there like Svidler, MVL are the common ones. Nepo is another like big Grunfeld guy. And I've always thought Kamsky had some really nice Grunfeld games. He's been playing this opening for many years, and he's a good player, I think, to kind of study as well. Okay, anyway, I actually want to give you this position as kind of the next exercise. Maybe we'll end this with this one. Yeah, maybe take another 10 minutes here. Now, okay, black has sacrificed the pawn. You're already in this position. So now you got to figure out how to proceed.
Okay.
All right, let's reset the timer here. And okay, so yeah, now it's black to move again. And as I said, it's not f5. Yeah, that's probably good to point out that f5 has some drawbacks here in this position. No, I think it's a fun position here for black. I mean, as white against the Grunfeld, I can't say I've done super well. It's always been one of those openings that is just very difficult. Even when you get a good position, black always has this like long-term kind of dynamic counterplay. I think there is more than one way of playing this position, but yeah, it is important that black continues actively. Why is the timer already started? Because he's thinking about it. This is the next position. Okay, folks are interested in b5. Sure, b5 definitely feels like a move. Chat loves sacrificing goddess pawn. So on b5, I would think bishop takes b5. And then if bishop takes c3 check, I'll say moving the king doesn't look that bad, but maybe even just bishop d2. If we're taking on c3, I don't know if that's chat's idea, but on b5, I think white probably should take with the bishop there. Because from white's point of view, the bishop on c4, it's kind of like a target right now. It's like kind of hanging. So getting it off of c4 actually feels nice. Midas says bishop g4, f3, rook ac8, which is an interesting line. F5, we got a blunder check that one. Well, let's not guess. Let's try to calculate. Yeah, I know that's the problem with Blitz. When you play too much Blitz, it's like you don't really want to like kind of dig in, investigate. You just want to just make the first move you see. Just it looks good enough. Let's play it, which is fun. I mean, it's fine for Blitz, but then when we we switch back to classical, it's kind of difficult to adjust. No, I got the I got the reference. Now bishop takes h2. We want to be careful because white will try to trap us with like g3. Okay, brick e4 has an interesting line. Wants to go bishop g4, f3, rook ac8, fg4, queen c4, queen takes c4, rook takes c4, bishop d2, rook fc8, and we can win back a pawn. So I would definitely agree black has a lot of pressure there, but well, if you check your calculation, you'll see when the rook gets to c4, you're also hitting the e4 pawn with check. So maybe you don't even need rook fc8, so yeah. Definitely worth kind of trying to, we don't want to calculate too long and then miss options kind of along the way. Yeah, but I think you're definitely doing good work there. So race to gm wants bishop g4, f3, rook fc8, and then bishop d3 for white. Why are we going rook fc8? Not saying it's wrong, but just curious. It just feels correct. No, that's fine. Just curious. Hey, V-Runner with the Prime sub. Thanks so much. Welcome to the dojo. Oh, are you a Bronstein fan? Man, Bronstein was good. I don't know if you guys know this about Bronstein, but he was good at chess. Oh, just said Zurich every year. So funny. Yeah, guys, if you ever want to look smart, just go rook fc1 or rook fc8. If you ever want to just look look like a GM. Yeah, thanks, Wrath of God Snake. Thanks. Hey, Breams with the gifted sub. Much appreciated. Thanks for the support. Nizahi once won a game against an FM because he went Rook FCA instead of Rook ACA. Well, that's what he gets for trying to be too subtle. But was that really why? Like, was like F2 or I mean, was F7 hanging or something? Is that, is that? That's kind of funny. Yeah, Rook AE1 when you have a Rook on F1, absolutely. And like Knight on F6, so like the F pawn is still blocked. Yeah. Okay, I'll say in general, guys, like the main reasons to use the F Rook is like when there's only one open C file. Alrighty. Sorry, guys. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay, what were we thinking here?
So I had 3 sort of candidate moves: e6, b5, and bishop d7. And with bishop d7, actually, maybe with the idea of going bishop g4, sort of like to provoke f3, because, and then go bishop d7, because I think queen takes g4, queen takes c4 is probably good for me. So I spent a lot of time looking at b5, because e6 takes, let's say bishop takes, f takes, just doesn't look appealing. White will probably go bishop h6 soon and then kick me out of, kick the rook out somehow. I if I try to maintain it on the f file, I won't be able to double. So it just, I don't know, it didn't feel like breaking up the pawn structure that way was the right way to go. So I tried to make b5 immediately work, sort of in the spirit of the position of like, basically sacking another pawn just to continue developing with tempo. But also couldn't really make it work. I think white can sort of probably just take it with the bishop. I can take on c3, but then bishop takes and then bishop d2 probably, and it just didn't see much after that. And so I do want to play b5 at some point, so that's why I landed on bishop d7, maybe also with the idea of bishop a4, trying to maybe dislodge that rook and maybe take on c3 in better circumstances.
So did you decide whether you want to go bishop d7 or bishop g4?
Yeah, I think I would go bishop g4 first.
Okay, so you do want to provoke f3 and then drop back.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, very good. I think bishop g4 is right. That was played in the game, and yeah, if white, I think actually white did take, but black doesn't have any issues after takes. Their game continued. Bishop d2, b6, queen e2, and then Kamsky showed his class with the rook fc8. We were talking about how this is the ultimate grandmaster move using the f rook, with the point that if takes, black just gets tons of compensation in this endgame, can swing the rook over to a4, and yeah, when black wins the pawn back, inevitably we'll be doing quite okay. So yeah, this one is definitely fine for black, and you could start with bishop d7. I think this is reasonable as well, but I do like bishop g4 more because you kind of provoke this weakness with f3. That makes it harder for white. Now like the diagonal is slightly weaker. And actually I think Kamsky's idea might have been actually to play rook ac8 in this position. I think this might have been his intended follow-up. Bishop d7 is certainly playable as well because you have your compensation. You're just going rook ac8 and maybe f5 somewhere, or or b5 and so on. But I think his idea might have been to do this one, which is even more forceful. Because then again, like, okay, the endgame, you're absolutely fine because now e4 pawn is like additional weakness here for white, so you have the full compensation. And then if white moves the bishop, then black probably has time to just take on c3 and move the bishop back, or even I think f5 is possible here. And yeah, here, okay, the f rook is very useful for black in this kind of situation. I think black would be getting their full play. But yeah, nice,
Cool.
a nice job, well played on this one. Oh yeah, just to clear it up for everyone, white can certainly take on g4. In fact, that's what happened in the game. Then after queen takes c4, black is still down a pawn but has full compensation because it's very difficult for white to castle here and complete development. And of course, white's remaining pawns are kind of split and weak, so black has kind of long-term pressure here. All right. So, okay, well done, Frank. I'll tell you kind of what I felt going through your games was that it seemed like to me you're like just a very like solid and almost like a correct player. It's like you're trying to make like the right move. And I don't know, one thing I think I would want to see you incorporate more in your games is this sense of dynamics and being willing to kind of like take more risks, especially with material and playing playing for the initiative, being willing to give a pawn for like positional compensation, dynamic compensation, especially with some of your openings like the Catalan and the Grunfeld. These do call for some dynamic play, especially the Grunfeld. Like sometimes you just have to like try to set the board on fire, and it really requires some sharp moves sometimes. So hopefully these positions were useful for you.
Absolutely, that's great. Thank you.
Awesome, and yeah, hopefully they were good for everyone in chat. My suggestion would be to actually basically do what I did to prep for this lesson. Find some Grunfeld games, find some interesting moments, and just analyze them. You know, find a move that like was unexpected, and just try to understand, you know, what was calculated, what was the idea, and what you can learn from it. And I think in general, because, well, the theory will always change and your opponents, you know, will make all kinds of different moves in the opening, but of course the ideas will always be more or less the same. And if you have this kind of nice arsenal and this confidence to kind of play in this manner, you'll feel like you can do a lot of different things in these types of middle games. So, okay, yeah, that'll wrap it up for this lesson. Thanks again for joining me. I wish you the best of luck. You mentioned you're going to be playing an online tournament soon. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm going to be playing. Charlotte Chess Center has another iteration of their online open with the same format over Memorial Day. So I'm going to try to play that as well.
Sweet. Well, best of luck for that. I hope you prep well and show up ready to play some good chess.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, absolutely.